So we've got another really juicy day. And today's topic is deconstructing insularity. So this one is a little bit more of a work. We're going to work with our reflection. And I'm going to start by drawing upon a number of different sources today, but I'm going to start by reading one of the Radiance Sutras that has the word insularity in it that struck me. Trees have desires, rocks have knowledge, jugs are full of emptiness and joy. All embodied ones have this in common. All are propelled by the same one, whose pulse beats in your breast. Shed insularity. Be all-pervasive, delighting in kinship everywhere. It seems to me that a divine childlike quality is this final phrase of not being insulated, not being protected. And part of the proof of that is oftentimes the inner child healing work that has to take place later in life because of the undefended self that someone is in their childlike moments. But there is something that I want to bring us to in shedding this insularity. So our work is to come back to that, to be all pervasive, to allow ourselves to get intimate with everything. And the result here in this sutra is that we delight in kinship everywhere. I remember growing up in our family, in our nuclear family, mom, dad, my sister and I, my brother wasn't born yet, that Kelly in our nuclear family, my sister was a very big introvert, very shy. And I in our insular family was very much an extrovert. So I was much shyer to the public, but in our family structure, majorly expressive. And my sister was very, very, very shy in self-expression. And there was a way, though, that when I look at both of us, you might have looked and said, oh, I'm really open, and my sister was really closed. But actually, when I look back on the memories, my sister, even though she was shy, was just as open. She was not insulated. And as I've gotten to know her over the years, she was deeply impressed by, inspired by, impacted by her childhood, just as I was, in our own unique ways. So it says something to me that children in general are less defensive, have built up less of an insulation for a certain amount of protection. And even in growing up, a lot of times this is framed as something positive, as enculturation. What is proper? What is appropriate? What are the social mores? We fit ourselves into these constructs that actually keep us a little bit separate from each other. They provide something of an insulation. I know if you look back at movies of when people wrote letters or interacted socially, like in the 17 and 1800s, you'll see there's great propriety. There are certain things you say, there are certain things you never say. And now we're in a little bit of a pendulum where especially our younger generations are breaking down all of those walls and barriers to discover a new sense of belonging and norm. But in that, though, is built in a kind of an insularity as we become adults. That is a way we relate to ourselves and to the world. And yet the divine child at the center of our being longs for a kinship everywhere, longs for connectivity in every way, shape, or form. And in order to get there, part of what we can do is deconstruct our insularity. Notice places where we have, even if it's with all the best motives, so maybe it's not coming from fear, we recognize where we have built a certain way we are or way we need to be. And let this moment in our lives be a way of, how can I deconstruct that? Is it serving me to have kinship everywhere? It doesn't mean that we don't have natural, healthy boundaries in relationships. In fact, it is the way we discover what a healthy boundary is. That may seem like a contradiction, but it's true. I want to give you an example, and I have used this story before, but maybe you haven't heard it. I don't know what context I used it. So during the honeymoon period between myself and the beloved from the ages of 19 and 24, part of what I was doing living in Santa Cruz was working with the homeless, a big passion of mine. And I was invited at one point, I was part of the core team, and I had 1 or 2 nights that I was part of the team for that evening. And we served the homeless in a very all-encompassing way. We had resources for rehab, for medical, for education, and they participated in a program with us. So they didn't just stay with us and have shelter and food. They actually made a commitment to participate in community things, which meant that we had a game night and we had prayer at night, and we had numerous things that we did that they had to say yes to. So at one point, as part of this team, I was invited by the founder to be the manager of Wednesday night. And I was intimidated. I think at first I thought I was only 19, but I actually think I was 20. But even if I was 21, that's still very young. I was invited to be the manager. That was massive. Most of the people we were serving were older than me by 10, 20 years. And they were very complex. The people we were serving, many of them had challenges with drugs. Many of them had PTSD in some way, shape, or form. So I was being invited into a level of intimacy and service that scared me. I wondered if I could do it. I was afraid. I was afraid that I was incapable. And I was also afraid, in all honesty, of getting that close. And I was a little protected. I was a little insulated just being part of the team. But being the manager would mean that I would have the one-on-one responsibility with everybody that stayed with us. That means whenever something arose, I was the one facilitating how resolve happened, or how something would move forward. And in that facing of myself on those 2 doubts, those self-doubts I had, I remember I was at the shelter for my shift one night before I gave a yes or a no. And I was standing in the kitchen and I was looking out into the dining sleeping space where everyone was gathered. And this fear that came up very, very close to me, this fear of getting close. And before me, the doorway shifted into an etheric white-blue light. And standing in the doorway was Christ, radiating this white-blue light. And as this Christ stood there, I don't want to say he or she, even though for me it was a he, it doesn't matter. I was immediately illumined to see that drawing close through compassion has its own strength and has its own inner protection, if you will. It is the way. There is no other way. And when that illumination happened, I gave my yes. And with that, had this glorious period of being both challenged and joyfully delighted in being in the role of manager. So it brings me to then the message of this reflection. To deconstruct insularity is to recognize where we have insulation and to open up to the healing of that insulation, to recognize that it doesn't serve us. We have two divine masters that are part of this reflection, and I'm bringing them in because our chant today is going to draw upon the beloved Hanuman, whom I love. I love Hanuman. So the two divine masters, one you have just heard from, Jesus. And really in the example of Jesus, in the experience of Jesus, in the teaching of Jesus, in the embodiment of Jesus, and even in the theology that's a retrospective look at Jesus, what we have is the greatest intimacy of all. It is the God source. It's kenosis, coming into the very fiber in every element of creation. You can't get more all-pervasive than that, can you? And on the same note, in the same way, we have Hanuman. And Hanuman, which is the Hindu god, Hindu deity, who is of devotion, of service. You have the same energy as Jesus in this outpouring of self, out of love, and being touched by the intimacy with all things, touched by. So as adults, we have the opportunity of stepping into the divine childlikeness that is undefended, and not just being the passive open canvas like children oftentimes are, but actually stepping forward as agents of embodied devotion. It is said, so Hanuman had a special love for Sita and Rama was considered, I think, the 8th avatar, the incarnation of the god Vishnu. I think it's 8th. And Hanuman helps them overcome something very big. Sita was kidnapped, the wife, and there's a war, and Hanuman leads it, and they have victory. And Hanuman does all of this out of deep, deep devotion. The stories of Hanuman are so compelling, filled with so much compassion, just like with Jesus. And at the celebration of when this war was completed, Sita takes pearls from it's a legend, takes pearls from around her neck and gives them to Hanuman. And Hanuman, because he's very playful, as we are called to be, he started biting the pearls open. And they're really mystified at this. Like, why would he do this? These pearls are so valuable, and here is he biting them open. And Hanuman says, I'm looking for you, my beloveds. I'm looking for you in the pearls. And Hanuman reveals even more. He says, you are written upon my heart. And what he does is Hanuman literally puts his hands inside his chest and breaks open his chest. And there, sitting in light within his heart, are Sita and Rama. Now, I would say that that's pretty intimate, right? That's where you get this image within the heart. But you get the same images if you pull up the Sacred Heart of Jesus. You get the same illumination. So deconstructing insularity opens us up to the divinity of living a life of devotion, of the intimacy that devotion brings us, where we find kinship everywhere. So on that note, I thought it would be nice, we've never done this before, is to have one little part of a Hanuman chant. So we'll do the mala again. And again, this is you can Google Shantala, one of my favorite kirtan leaders, and they have a Hanuman Chalisa version that is where I'm taking this little refrain from. So we're not chanting the whole thing. There's too many Sanskrit words, but we're just going to take part of the refrain and chant that over again. And it's Sita, Rama, and Hanuman. So the reason that we invoke Sita and Rama as well as Hanuman for a Hanuman chant is because of the deep intimacy. It plays out in a very real sense that devotion takes us closer to each other. And our hearts are broken open again and again, sometimes with joy, sometimes with anguish, but our hearts are broken open and open again and again. All right, so I'm going to actually You won't be able to hear this, but I'm going to refresh the chant for myself. So as I pull this up, I invite you just to let yourself move into the silence for a moment. Close your eyes, get comfortable, get ready for our chant. And as we get ready for this chant together, come into a closeness with yourself, because that's where it starts. And where might you be insulated from your very self? Where might you be insulated from fear or any reason? Let's deconstruct that, and let's let Hanuman break open his heart so that we can discover we are within the heart of the divine, and we are the divine that is holding ourselves as well. You relax. Inviting in a breath and exhaling and joining as you're able. Jai Sitaram, Jai Hanuman, 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 Sitaram, Jai Hanuman, Jai 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 Sitaram, Jai Hanuman. Let yourself be supported and guided by Hanuman and by Jesus, who are both here by virtue of their own devotion. They are here to awaken you to the intimacy that shows up as embodied devotion, to deconstruct your insularity. We are here to be birthed anew. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Great to be with you.